But first, let's get to the big story from the weekend. Big surprise. The San Antonio Spurs, who dominated the regular season over the Oklahoma City Thunder, prove it was no fluke. They win on Saturday night, 111-103. So they do cover and, of course, capture the point total there, plus 3.5. So that's a money line win for you as well. Wasn't a crazy game, by the way, for Wemby, just 22-7. And Julian Champagnie had 20 points. Now, SGA did have 35 points and 9 assists, but basically the Thunder's defense really failed them in the second half of this game. Here's De'Aaron Fox on a preview of the finals.
When you see the NBA Finals, what do you picture?
I mean, why not picture us holding the trophy at the end? But, I mean, just thinking of everything that goes into it, just the blood, sweat, the tears, the travel, everything that we go through throughout the course of the regular season, and then adding another 30 games, like that does a lot to your body. But I think we're built for it. I think we're prepared for it.
All right, so game one is Wednesday night of the NBA Finals. The Stanley Cup Finals begin tomorrow. So we'll have previews of all of the games in the Stanley Cup and the NBA Finals as they basically play every other night. But here is the opening line for game one. The Spurs will host the Knicks, and they're 4.5-point favorites. You see the total there, 218.5. Most believe that some money will come in on the Knicks. This could be 4 before they tip off Wednesday night in Texas. All right, now let's get to some baseball for the weekend. What a great month it was for Jacob Misiorowski. It's going to be a tough call for pitcher of the month of May because Misiorowski threw 7 more shutout innings. So it's basically him and Christopher Sanchez who have been incredible. Brewers shut out the Astros 2-0. The Miz was 5-0, 57 strikeouts and a .23 earned run average. But the problem was Sanchez didn't give up a run in May. How about that? Both guys back to back. Here is the Miz saying he had a decent month of May. Is he kidding?
You just finished a pretty impressive month. How would you describe the month you had?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, I haven't looked at all the numbers and such, so I couldn't tell you exactly what I did. But it felt good. It felt like a pretty decent month.
It's probably one of those things that we look at, you don't think of this season in terms of blocks of months.
Exactly. I mean, that's what, you're trying to go home 162 games or whatever, 30 starts I have. So, a span of 6, however many it would be in a month. I don't really look at it that way. You're kind of just looking at the whole season, trying to figure it out.
How about if we told you your ERA was 0.23 for the month of May? Does that change your opinion at all?
I mean, that's decent. Yeah, that's pretty good. But no, I mean, again, I can't look at it, can't really focus on that, because as soon as you do, it goes haywire. Yeah.
Probably going to see Misiorowski in the All-Star game again, maybe even starting the game. I guess we'll see. All right, hey, Baltimore Orioles with a nice weekend again, so they cap off their homestand 7-3. Impressive stuff to jump back in the race. They beat the Blue Jays 9-5. Kyle Bradish picked up the win. Homers from Colton Cowser and Pete Alonso in the key victory. Solid homestand, says manager Craig Albernaz.
It was a good homestand. Boys played well. They competed. Great at-bats. Defense was awesome. Base running. It was just we were playing the baseball that we're capable of. Just all the work that these guys have been putting in relentlessly every day. We're starting to see the rewards now, and against some really good teams, it's been fun to watch, and especially with the starting pitching. The starting pitching has really taken a step forward, and it's been awesome.
Guess who else is hot? Los Angeles Dodgers. That shouldn't be a surprise. 9-1. They took care of the Phillies. They were big favorites here, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto struck out 10 in 5 1/3. Muncy and Freeland homered in the game. Here's Dave Roberts after with another big win for LA.
5 series in a row. Is this the consistency that you expect out of this group now?
Yeah. You're going to get beat at times. It's going to happen, but I do think with the talent that we have, if we, focus and play like we're capable of, we should win series, regardless home, road. So this next one's going to be a good one. Diamondbacks always play us tough, and so play at their place is always difficult. So this is going to be a fun series coming up.
A rare series win these days for the Boston Red Sox. There haven't been many this season, but they beat the Cleveland Guardians 9-4. They were down 4-3 in the 7th. They came back to win, and so interim manager Chad Tracy at least has this series to be happy about.
Your overall thoughts on the weekend, winning a rubber game, which you guys hadn't done in, I guess in your tenure?
Yeah,
losing the first game and you're kind of up against it on the road, and come back and win the game yesterday, and then at one point be trailing late today and fight back and put a big number up there and win a series. Now you have an off day and you're going home. So that's a big win today, but a big couple wins to finish this thing off.
Also a big win for the Pirates as they sweep the seemingly fast-falling Twins. 9-3, Pirates win as home favorites. Starting pitching has been incredible for Pittsburgh. Brandon Ashcraft yesterday struck out 11 in 6 innings. Braxton Ashcraft, he has been fantastic. Here is Ashcraft after the game on what worked for him.
Kind of my MO is just staying in the zone, suffocating the zone with strikes. I put a lot of trust in Henry, Joey, Indy, whoever's back there, just to game plan, kind of understand what's going on with hitters, and it allows me to kind of turn my brain off and focus on the task at hand. That's throwing strikes, getting guys out in the zone. So being able to have the confidence in them back there, it's really nice.
By the way, the Pirates also placed pitcher Carmen Mlodzinski on the restricted list. He refuses to pitch for the Pirates. Kind of a bizarre story there. We'll tell it to you later. All right, now let's get back to some final scores. The Reds do win yesterday over the Atlanta Braves, but they may have a very critical injury to their starting lineup as Elly De La Cruz left in the 5th inning with a hamstring issue. Here's Terry Francona on that.
And on Elly, it was listed as tightness in the hamstring. Do you know the severity yet?
Yeah, and the reason they said that is he feels like he caught it before it did anything worse. Saying that, we're going to get him scanned at 9 in the morning and we'll know more.
Tough injury for the Reds. All right, White Sox just keep winning even without Murakami. In the 7th inning, they come back to win 2-1 and beat the Tigers. And yes, that's a sweep. The Tigers are in last place in the Central. How about that? Colson Montgomery homered. That was a key hit in the game, and here he is after the game on the rally.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen it all year. You've seen it in, big games, and, it doesn't matter. Division games are division games. These are the games that we want, and, these are the games we're not gonna stop. And I think we've shown all year that we're a team that, if they get ahead, that you can't just stop. We're gonna be, one at bat away, one guy away, and I credit, Chase getting on, Gonzo getting hit, and then, Peters, just doing what he does, puts the ball in play and creates havoc, and I just think that's what we do.
Sticking in the American League, we'll go to the East. The Yankees put 13 runs up in the 3rd and beat the A's 13-8. Ben Rice had 5 runs driven in. Juan Soto hit a grand slam. The Mets swept the Marlins over the weekend. That was tough for me. The Giants ended up scoring 19 runs on 25 hits in their win against the Colorado Rockies, so they win as slight road favorites and avoid being swept. It was Willy Adames who had a grand slam and 4 runs driven in, and Jung-Ho Lee had 5 hits in this game as the Giants' bats finally came alive. Welcome back to Newswire here on SportsGrid. Always good to catch up with my friend Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report for the very latest on sports betting and more. Pat is here with us. Great to have him here as we get the month of June off and sports betting to a good start here. Hey, a pretty nice story here. Pat, the state of Connecticut wanting to make sure that toll-free lines are correctly set up. Certainly, this is a very positive move in the world of sports betting, but a little bit of a wrinkle here as well. Tell us more.
Yeah, so Connecticut is one of those states that a lot of bills the last 2 years have been introduced, just kind of fine-tuning the sports betting markets and guardrails. And of course, you have the U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut, who's one of the leading voices at a federal level to put better nationwide guardrails in. So Connecticut is just one of those states to kind of watch when you're seeing stuff. And yeah, Governor Ned Lamont signed 2 bills recently that, it requires sports betting operators to offer a toll-free support line rather than just like a chatbot or whatever is on there. So that is in there. It also adds a provision for to change the state's cheating laws, which kind of surprised me that there was a just cheating law. It apparently went into effect in 1995. And obviously sports betting was not legal back then. So they instituted that now, and that will go into effect later this year. And that, says that you can't cheat, you can't know results or affect anything. So that will go into the effect there. And then there was another bill that was to create prediction market study, which everything is all the rage. Prediction markets are now. And of course, we've got multiple states fighting lawsuits against both the prediction markets and the federal CFTC, which regulates them federally. And this is just the state lottery, the tribes that are contracting for online casino and sports betting, and the state to say, hey, what is this doing to our market, and what can we do about it? And so that will probably come into effect next legislative session, where lawmakers can then say, okay, we'll see what to do. Now, I did a story recently before, a couple of months ago, that said, these state laws that are trying to limit or tax prediction markets do not matter until, the Supreme Court rules on it and gets all these state by state lawsuits out of the way. But at least these states are trying to get ahead of that. So yeah, just a lot of bills that have come into Connecticut to fine tune the market, and we see some of them get through, which might be kind of a hint to what other states might do in the future.
Okay, fair enough. Now let's get to a story that we covered last week on the surface a little bit with Sam McQuillan, which is this idea that Louisiana wants to protect their athletes more and stop, or at least deter, the harassment of athletes, Pat. But as I asked Sam, and I will ask you the same, is this something that's genuinely enforceable? It seems really hard to go to social media accounts and try and find who these people really are, and then fans yelling, you lost my parlay, things like that. How do they enforce this sort of thing?
Yeah, so I think that's something that the state regulators will have to work with both sports books and the athletes and teams themselves, and hearing from them what might be the issues. And this was a big issue, I think, a couple of years ago when the Dayton head basketball coach came out and said, hey, our players are getting bombarded with threats and all of this. The NCAA has come out and strong push for banning collegiate prop bets, which they believe will help protect player safety, because if you can't guess that Jeremy Fears Jr., for my Spartan fans out there, I'm a Spartan, doesn't make these many assists, then you're not going to send him a dirty, a mean text or DM. So yeah, it is questionable on how you can enforce it. But yeah, this passed unanimously in the Louisiana legislature. And, so obviously they believe that there is some way to enforce it. And we'll see. I'm sure they'll do a good job of letting us know how many people they do end up punishing or things like that. Similarly, and I think this might kind of be a better way of understanding how they might enforce it, is there's a bill in process in New York that is similar, and it would prohibit bettors from having sports betting accounts from complaints that are criminally connected to threats to athletes, refs, coaches, the like. So I think if it's elevated to the law enforcement, that's when you can say, okay, we can enforce this, and you're not going to have a sports betting account. You're going to get fined, probably, maybe if it's severe enough, maybe some jail time, who's to say. So that's a huge factor there in Louisiana and New York potentially. And it does note, and now that you've asked this, maybe I'll do this. I'll do a little digging for you, and we can talk about it next week. Is Ohio banned harassing or has banned sports betting accounts for people who have been found to be guilty of this, and so has West Virginia. So I'll do some looking into that and see how many people they've enforced, and see how we can do that. And I'll do that just for you, Craig. But in Louisiana, I should also note, last year they unanimously banned sweepstakes casinos. The governor came back and vetoed that bill and said that the regulator has enforceable rights to that, and then they sent 40 cease and desist letters. This year the legislature returned and still weren't happy with the sweepstakes kind of laws on the books, so they went ahead and added it to the racketeering charges in Louisiana, and the governor signed that as well. So some big action in Louisiana in terms of governor signatures for those bills.
Something I never thought would ever come to pass. It's kind of happened occasionally with sports books and advertising. A guy gets hurt, now you get your money back. I never thought that this would actually be a bill. I thought it was just a good promo for FanDuel and DraftKings and some of these other companies. If for example, your running back got hurt in the first quarter, or wide receiver, or even quarterback, we're going to avoid those bets. Made the better feel good. But actually going into a law, how is this possible?
Yeah, I mean, again, New York is one of those states that kind of leads the states in fine tuning the sports betting regulations and laws. And yeah, to your point, this is something that gets so much social media chatter, so much just general betting talk when you're with friends out at the bar or whatever. Is yeah, if you've got a bet on a running back to rush for 50 yards and he's hurt in the first quarter and well, then you're mad. You're getting mad at the sports book, and some sports books kind of set that precedent of here's your money back, kind of as a goodwill gesture. But to me, it's like, well, you made that bet, and that's part of the game is an injury. So how does that work? But here in New York, you've got a bill being introduced that would make sports books have a process to refund a bet if somebody's hurt or gets benched or what. I don't know if the benching is necessarily part of it, but would kind of regulate it and make a very firm process for it, so you're not left wondering, oh, this guy got hurt last time I bet on somebody and he got hurt, I got my money back. And you can see how that would be kind of inconsistent and kind of frustrating for bettors. So we'll see if this makes any sort of progress in New York, or if it does make it there, does it kind of make sports books do it nationwide, or do other states start to say, hey, that was a good idea, we'll do that just for consumer safety and satisfaction more than anything else. Also of note, there's a couple of other bills moving along in New York. One is to ban billboard ads. Anybody who's been in a state with legalized sports betting knows that as soon as it launches, those ads are everywhere. They're on the sides of buses, on the sides of the highways, what have you, and they want to kind of bring it back and say, no, you can't do that, kind of like cigarette ads and things like that. We've seen lots of markets kind of address how sports betting is advertised and trying to minimize the amount of ads that maybe people under 21 would see when it comes to sports betting. So we'll see if any of these get moved forward in New York. And of course, if they do, or even if they don't, we'll bring it back here and I'll talk to you about it at a later date.
And for sure, check out Pat over at LegalSportsReport.com for all of these topics and a whole lot more. Thanks again, Pat, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks as always, Craig.